Hello, minions. Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at another call from the Atheist Experience show. We're going to find out why faith doesn't matter in your arguments for God. All right, let's fucking do this.
Skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. A shrieking skull will shock your soul and seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons.
Today's call is going to be taken by Matt and Don, my favorite dynamic duo, the Starsky and Hutch of the Atheist Experience show. Let's listen in.
2013, 2014. This is the first time I've called in.
Hey, what do you got for us?
I think that the idea that faith cannot be a valid mode of knowledge is, I guess I disagree with that idea.
Is there anything that you couldn't believe and attribute it to faith?
Oh man, we're off to a flying start right off the bat. This dude seems to disagree that faith cannot be the valid mode of knowledge. Now, Matt has been over this many times in the past as well. And the simple fact is, faith has nothing to do with knowledge, period. Let's take a look at what faith means in the dictionary, for example. All right? There's some definitions here. All right, let's look at them. We got confidence or trust in a person or thing. We got belief that is not based on proof. We got belief in God or in doctrines of or teachings of religion. We got belief in anything as code of ethics, standards, or merit. We got a system of religious belief, and we got the obligation of loyalty or fidelity to a person, a promise, or an engagement. I'm not seeing knowledge anywhere for some reason. I wonder why that is.
Is there anything that I couldn't believe and attribute it to
Is
faith?
there anything that one could not believe and just attribute to, I'm taking this on faith?
I guess not.
And you would be correct. Faith is completely meaningless. I know it's being thrown around all the time, and people think they can justify whatever they want by saying, well, you just have to have faith, but it really isn't. And Matt's made this point many, many times. You can believe anything and say that your faith justifies it. There's absolutely nothing you cannot believe and say that you don't have faith in it. You can essentially take any position and say that you have faith. You can lie about everything. You can make up stuff and say, well, faith. Faith is not knowledge, and it's certainly not evidence.
If that's the
I'm
case,
not sure.
Could somebody believe something that is false and attribute it to faith?
They could attribute it to faith.
Sure. So if somebody says, I believe this, and their attribution is faith, how do we tell whether or not it's true?
I don't think we can as outsiders. I don't think...
I'm going to take it on faith. I'm going to take it on faith that when I let go of this bottle of Coke Zero, that it's going to fall to the table.
Right.
It's either going to fall or it's not.
Right. I'd say that that's not something that's taken on faith generally, but I mean, if somebody says they're going to take that on faith, I mean, we don't have any mechanism for determining whether or not that's valid. And
We don't have any mechanism. What are you talking about? Any reasonable person knows what to do in these situations. You can test it, you can observe it, you can study it, and you can find evidence whether shit works or not. What do you mean we have no mechanism? That is literally not how science works. You don't just have faith in stuff. Well, we don't know how this is going to work, but, let's have faith because we don't have a mechanism to determine whether it does or not. No, that's not how it is. That's not how anything is. God damn it.
and
Sure we do. I can let go
if
if it falls. That's how we find out whether or not something is true, by investigation, not by faith.
Right. That's right. That's through evidence.
But Matt's
And
earlier
I'm
point is if you can believe anything on faith, then it doesn't give you a guide to what's true or not.
Right. Well, you could believe everything on faith. I think that we're using faith in two different terms here. When a lot of believers talk about faith, they use it as you guys have described, and as I've heard other callers sometimes describe, as evidence for things unseen, that sort of thing, and just take that on faith. But I want to look at it in a slightly different light, like as sort of as another sense experience or another possible sense experience.
All right, so my boy Zach here is backed into a corner, but instead of admitting that he's wrong, he's going to start playing word games. Well, then there's different meanings of faith. No, there fucking isn't. There's one meaning of faith. Do you want me to look it up again for you?
Okay, the problem Zach, the problem we're going to run into, and I'll let you do this, but now we've got two different definitions of faith, which are fundamentally different. One you're going to describe as a sense experience, and the other one is belief in the absence of evidence.
Right, and I think that the two are often confused, and I think that they're often. I think that often people use it in that way.
Zach, why call a sense experience faith if faith is used in another way, and we already have the term sense experience?
Because I don't think that's. Because I think often when people hear the word faith, sometimes they can think, evidence, reason for belief in the absence of evidence. And other times when they hear it, they can think this sort of other sense experience of possibly spiritual realities.
What is this sense experience, and how do you know that it's real?
Well, the same way we could know any sense experience is real and is as valid as any other sense experience.
Cool.
Oh my God. No, it isn't. We're off to the races. And here we go again with the same bullshit as always. Instead of evidence, we're going to get sense experience. We're going to get visions. We're going to get voices that you hear. We're going to have personal anecdotes. It's the same as always. It's not fucking evidence, and it's not fucking valid.
To the person who has it, it's a valid.
Not cool at all. You just said we could validate it the same way we would any other sense experience, and we validate no other sense experience by merely taking the person at their word that their understanding of a sense experience is. It's independent verification that validates the reliability of senses.
The idea of an ESP, and that's been well tested and found to be bogus.
ESP, sure. Yeah, I agree.
So
with
how
that,
does this differ from ESP?
And I'm not talking about the explaining it to another person, being able to have some sort of shared belief in something.
How do I distinguish this from a mind game?
Then I am absolutely not interested. I'm not interested in claims to personal truth. Truth is truth. The way we validate things is by independent confirmation, because the person who is suffering from delusions, who we have to lock up, they have what they're going to call their personal truth. If we're not going to care about the facts about a shared reality, I don't know why we're wasting time discussing it.
Oh, what do you mean, Matt? You mean every fucking raving lunatic that's locked up in prison because he's got voices in his head telling him to kill people? You mean he doesn't have valid sense experiences that we should take seriously? Oh, didn't somebody's dog tell him to kill people? You gotta be fucking kidding me with this. How is this even being used? How is this guy even putting up like an honest argument for this? That's right. David Berkowitz, son of Sam. Didn't he say the dog told him to kill people? The devil dog, Harvey, or whatever it was? You mean we should just take him seriously, I guess, right? He had a sense experience, surely.
This: if 90% of the world is blind, and 10% saw, would it be valid, or even less than that? Say 1 in a million or something like that, were able to see.
Okay.
Would it be valid for those people to claim that they had knowledge of something that the others didn't? Not to convince them, not to convince the blind people, but for the person who believes it, or for the person who sees, would it be valid for that person to say he sees?
Well,
all right, and then we're off to the realm of hypotheticals here. So let's see hypothetically, if the world is comprised of mostly blind people, and then there's only few people who could see, then they won't be able to explain that they could see because everybody else is blind. What the actual fuck is this guy even proposing here? That is not the world we live in. We have people who can see, and then we have some people who cannot see. But guess what they can do? People who can see can explain to them that in fact they do see. It's very fucking easy. And what are you equating this to? In the fact that some people can in fact see or hear God and the rest of us cannot, and we just have to take it on faith that they can and be like, well, it must be true because they've experienced it. They had a sense experience. No. People can see, can prove that they can see. And people that can hear God in their heads cannot prove that they can hear God. And that's why we have to take it on faith. Because in fact, there is no way they can prove it.
Word valid here because it has a specific meaning and logic. But can they be rational? Can they be rationally justified in believing that they can see? Yes.
Right.
And the blind people can be validly justified in not believing it until they have evidence.
And they can engage in particular with other people who can see to validate that they're seeing correctly. And this is something that you can teach and demonstrate to people who cannot see through empirical evidence.
You can demonstrate, things like being able to perceive things at a distance and things like that. You can't explain color to a person who can't see. There's no.
So first of all, I'm not convinced that is true. What you're getting to is this notion of qualia, which there's something experiential about it. There's something that we can describe and demonstrate. For example, I can identify color blindness in people, and I can find out who's not colorblind, and we can consistently demonstrate that some people are not colorblind. It doesn't change if the people who are colorblind are totally blind. The way to demonstrate this doesn't change. It's about being able to consistently produce results. Is this possible using the faith, sensus divinatus, whatever it is you're getting to?
Probably not in the same way.
Then why are we talking about it? Because you've said that you weren't interested in whether or not other people believed it, so it becomes a matter of personal experience and personal truth. And yet when we talk about these other senses, we're talking about independent verification and how we might demonstrate it to somebody who doesn't have those senses. And we pointed out already that those things are possible with other senses. So what is it about your special faith sense that even remotely compares to the things we discussed?
I have to say, like with colorblind tests, and stuff like that, there's no reason for a blind person to, suspect that a person actually can see color or that a person can't.
Yes, there is. There's the evidence for it.
We could render a spectrogram into Braille, for example.
There's a cool experiment with a tribe. They can see a distinction between two different colors of blue that I can't see a distinction between. Yeah, the tetrachromatics. Yeah. I'm willing to accept that they can see that distinction because the evidence consistently demonstrates that that's the case. I don't have to be able to see that distinction to be convinced reasonably that they can. If people of faith, even if they want to consider it a sense, wanted to, if their faith was a path to truth and understanding, first of all, we wouldn't have thousands of denominations all appealing to faith. But if they wanted to demonstrate reliably that they have access to some truth that the rest of us don't, that is at least theoretically possible. And yet it doesn't happen. What we get is varied revelations that are in conflict.
Okay, well, we could imagine, a sense experience, maybe not color, but I don't know, some sort of sense experience that can't be, independently verified.
Okay. And here we are again, back in the land of imagination, where it all seems to end up every single time. Oh, Zachary, you silly goose, you. You should have started off with that.
Okay, first of all, we can imagine whatever the hell we want, but if there was a sense experience that couldn't be independently verified, how could you ever have warrant to trust it? How is it distinguishable from a delusion? If you can't independently verify it, it is indistinguishable from a delusion.
Okay, I guess that's true, but I mean, if we have, so you're saying that if we had those kind of sense experience, if people actually had those kind of sense experiences, they would, they would not be able to, they would not be rationally justified in actually trusting those experiences?
Yes, because, for example, if I see a vision...
You look great.
And you are a vision.
...appear in this room, and I'm the only one who can see it, I have to question my own sanity. I have to question whether I'm seeing a vision or whether my brain is playing tricks on me. And if there's no way for me to investigate to determine if I've actually seen something real or if I've just perceived this, then I cannot have evidential warrant to believe that I saw it. I can believe that I had an experience because I did. I mean, that the properly basic thing is that I had some experience. But whether or not my mind's understanding of that experience maps to something about reality, that requires independent verification.
I see. All right, then.
That's why we end up locking. That's why we end up locking people up, because there are some people who experience strong delusions that, to them, based on the reports and the studies, are as functionally real as almost anything else they experience, and yet these things are not perceptible to the rest of us. We've identified, in some cases, problems with the brain, but in some cases we don't know why, but we do know that they're dangerous, and so we put them in protective custody.
I see.
So, I mean, for example, if God talks to you, and people say God talks to them all the time, and I usually ask, did they hear it audibly, or is this a feeling or an impression or something that happens in their brain? But in all of those, if God talks to you and tells you something, how can you be sure that God spoke to you and that this wasn't just a creation of your brain?
I don't have an answer for that right now. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to consider that and call you guys back next week.
Well, I'm reminded of when you go read about comic books and Spider-Man gets a special power of some sort. Then the first thing he does is he tries it out a bunch of times and makes sure it's real. And then at some point he starts to use it and starts to benefit by it and starts to go off and do things and the fact that he's out saving the world or whatever becomes evidence that other people can see. So
I can't keep shitting on Don like that, but I don't know what to do when he talks. He's talking about Spider-Man, and somehow it's still boring. I just don't get it, and I don't know what to tell him.
Right.
That might be.
I mean,
that might be a path,
right? But I mean, if Spidey had some sort of sense of something that I don't know how is happening beyond the observable observable universe.
Spider-Man has Spidey sense, the sense of danger in a number of the comic books, and the way that we know that it's reliable is he consistently finds the danger that he sensed.
So, in fact, Spidey senses are actually a valid mechanism for sensing danger. He doesn't take it on faith. He has got a little Spidey sense, and sure enough, in the comics, there is definitely a danger present. It's a testable thing. He's got the Spidey sense, and then there's danger. Spidey sense, danger. There's no faith involved. There's never like a Spidey sense, and then there's like nothing going on, and he's like, oh shit, false alarm. Right.
Because if any religious
there's actual, you can compare it to other senses in a respect. You can validate it by appeals to things that happen around us and things we can affect.
Yep.
Right, but beware of confirmation bias.
I'm in complete agreement. I just need to, if there was some religious sense, it would need to have some demonstrated reliability and a mechanism.
That would be step one, right?
By which we could confirm it. And so far, I've got nothing.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Zach.
That's I guess all I had. If I'm going to think about what you guys have said and possibly call back.
Sure. Thanks, Zach.
Bye.
Well, Zach here seems to be at least a reasonable person, and I believe this call ended on a positive note. And the bottom line is, faith is not a valid reason, and it's not a mode of knowledge. If you had good reasons to believe in something or to know something, you would have, in fact, good reasons. You would have evidence and something provable. And when you don't, and that's when you say faith. And that essentially is the cornerstone of religion. When you have nothing quantifiable, when you have nothing testable, to show for it, well, that's when you have to rely on faith. And then you can tell people not to question it because you have strong faith. When in fact, your faith is bullshit and it doesn't matter. Now, Matt here is going to make some excellent closing statements, and I'm going to let it play out. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.
But if there was a single Christian denomination, or I'll just stick with Christian, if there was a single Christian denomination that had access to the truth and the power of God, the world would be fundamentally different. This would be easy to demonstrate. Either there's a God that interacts in reality in some demonstrable, detectable way, or there's not. And if there's not, I think you'll find that the world we live in is exactly what you'd expect if that God doesn't exist. People have asked me to defend the hard atheist position that there are no gods, and I will do it with very specific definitions. But the book that I'm working on is fundamentally about how this world is exactly what we'd expect if there is no God. We would expect confusion. We would expect people who believe things but cannot offer evidence for them. We would expect people making appeals to special ways of knowing that they couldn't reliably demonstrate. We would expect conflicting revelations that tend to agree with the person and the biases and the prejudices that they have. And we would expect, if there was a God, for a God to perhaps step in and correct all this. Hang on a second, you guys have got it all wrong and this shit is important, so let me get you the correction. But if we live in a world without a God, that doesn't happen. As far as I can tell, that doesn't happen.